Hello, my name is Ethan Cole Hedrick, and this is my regional analysis for Northeast Asia. Let's start off with a general description of the region. The country's locations: China is the largest country in Asia. Hong Kong is a small peninsula off China's southern mainland. Japan is off the coast to the east of the mainland of China, and South Korea is a large peninsula off China's northern mainland. You can see all of the locations here. Yellow being China, green that you can't really see being Hong Kong, blue being South Korea, and red being Japan. This is exactly how the peninsula is for Hong Kong. A little bit of it is connected, but most of it is surrounded by the inlet and bay. The populations: China obviously has the largest in the world, with over 1 billion people. It looks to turn into 1.4 billion soon, maybe sometime in 2020 or 2021. Japan has an extremely high population for the amount of land that they have, but Hong Kong and South Korea are pretty normal. Hong Kong is pretty packed, but that's how most Northeast Asia countries, how their cities are. As far as trade with the region, there are negative exports / imports from the U.S. perspective to each of these countries. This is primarily because America is so dependent on China and Japan and South Korea for integrated circuits and for a lot of technology-based equipment. We're not as dependent on Hong Kong. We have a very good, positive relationship for us with them right now, but they're growing rapidly and steadily. As far as the imports and exports, the top two are the ones listed here, but what you don't see from the exports is that China, Hong Kong, and Japan, like the third or fourth in each of their categories, is also integrated circuits. So each of these countries really tends to view integrated circuits as something to export from their country. And from Hong Kong and South Korea, you also need to know that specifically for Hong Kong, the addition of crude petroleum and petroleum gas are both really important in that country as well. So you can see that generally the exports tend to be computer-related things, the highest things, or a niche field that they have, and then imports tend to be things that they do not have. As far as a brief history with these countries, Hong Kong and South Korea are part of the Four Tigers, and they are the most rapidly developing countries in the known world, and therefore U.S. has wanted to be involved in their trade heavily. China is still developing. We've had a very interesting and diverse up and down trade with China as far as whether we like them or we don't like them trade-wise. Japan was pretty closed to most of the world when they started entering the foreign markets. We tend to think of Japan as a pretty closed place. However, the U.S. has had it considerably easier than most countries when it comes to trade with Japan. Let's look at the economic environment. Per capita, the income, according to worlddata.info, is that Hong Kong has the highest per capita income in the region, with the lowest being in China. This is probably due to the enormous rural population in China. As far as the economic distributions in the region, like I just said, China has a rural and then an urbanized section of its populations, and most money in the economy goes to these urban areas. So it would make sense to market to these areas first, but that does not mean that we should exclude potential investment in smaller areas in China, because they aren't really being catered to in many instances. As far as the general state of the economies, all four are doing pretty dang well. They're growing, they are increasing in size, and and their economies are doing pretty well. How is this significant to marketing? It means that we want to be involved in these countries. We want to be involved in foreign direct investment in these countries, which I'm sure you'll see throughout the rest of the presentation. Let's look at the cultural environment. As far as the cultural environments, there's obvious and non-obvious factors. Obvious factors are language, Mandarin for China, Cantonese for Hong Kong, Japanese and Korean, obviously, respectively. The religions are Buddhism for China, atheism for Hong Kong, Shinto for Japan. But really, South Korea is very interesting because it's kind of like America in the sense that it is very much a mixing pot. They have a high Christian population, but they also have a decently high Buddhist and atheistic population with some Islamic. They have a very, very mixed religion, so more things are acceptable and less things are hard to market in their country. As far as non-obvious factors, China has been invaded by Japan several times. I see this whenever I went with my family to get my younger sister. She's adopted from China. We were on a tour with about 10 other American families going to get Chinese daughters, and somebody mentioned Japan in the bus, and we all kind of laughed, because Japanese people and Chinese people hate each other, and the lady said, "We hate Japanese people." Everyone kind of chuckled nervously, and she said, "No, we hate Japanese people," and it got deathly silent. It was insane. So that's something definitely to take into account when marketing as the deep set resentment there. As far as the region's household, they have a huge honor for guests. In fact, China and Japan have a whole lot of etiquette of having to do with household guests. But South Korea and Hong Kong are more relaxed on this, with the exception of South Korea. You need to take off your shoes when you go inside, or it's disrespectful. Those are the impacts. Political and legal environment. I kind of named each one of these countries just to kind of give an overview. China is loopholes and hoops. It's a socialist republic. It's random, but the traffic laws there can really hinder safe transport of goods. There's not a huge rule of law as far as traffic cops go. There are current efforts to de-escalate tariffs with China from Trump just in the past couple of months. So hopefully that'll turn up for our business relations there. And the regulations on customs are tough, even for personal travel. They're really, really strict. Hong Kong is modern and growing. They have a constitutional government. They're still under China, but they have a lot of autonomy. They have a pretty solid legal system and a supported free market through that system. They are one of the founding members of the World Trade Organization, so obviously they are really committed to growth. And they're one of our largest trading partners on percentage of GDP. Japan is precise and civilized. It's a constitutional monarchy, has a long-standing legal system, and a consistent rule of law. Japan's tariff proportions are some of the lowest in the world, albeit South Korea and Hong Kong have free trade agreements, so take that with a grain of salt. Also, specific things to know are that when in a business meeting with a Japanese country, always take notes and do not bend the business card. If it's the last thing you do, treat the business card with absolute, utter respect. It is their highest honor. It feels like when doing business with Japanese people. South Korea. They're open and understanding. A constitutional republic. Their legal system is based off of Napoleonic code or the civil law, kind of like Louisiana is. But more recent developments follow the common law, or America's main source of legal system. This has helped it to develop and grow a little bit and become a lot better. We have a recent free trade agreement with South Korea, which favors trade a lot in this country. And almost all customs are accepted in South Korea because of all the diversity with religion. But once again, watch the shoes. How about the financial environment? As far as the currencies go, China and Hong Kong have the highest equivalency to the US dollar. Chinese dollar or yuan is really strong right now, so you might want to watch that. Hong Kong is super predictable over the last 5 years to the life of Hong Kong because I don't know specifically why, but they've really helped it be super comparable to the US dollar. Japan moves a lot, but it is still a steady. You don't see a huge drop or a huge gain. It's pretty steady. South Korea is the most volatile of all the countries in this region. With the more predictable and steady income, steady dollars for, well, yen and Hong Kong dollar, but I just say dollar because that's what I know. It really is easier to do business with a country that has a predictable currency rather than a volatile currency. And those are the effects on the investment opportunities. As far as the nature of the infrastructure, transportation, communication, and marketing systems are all great in all these countries. They're modernized and they're mixed with less modernized, specifically in China with this rural area that does not have as good transportation or communication services. So you have to be careful about marketing to that area. But for the most part, it's pretty similar to each other and to developed parts of the world. As far as internet goes, China has the lowest population of people with internet access. This is really ironic considering that the e-shopping in China is huge. It's one of the largest in the world. And when compared to South Korea, Japan, and Hong Kong, it dwarfs all three of them. While they are not bad percentage-wise for South Korea, Japan, and Hong Kong as far as internet shopping goes, China blows them out of the water in percentage. The impacts of this are that it's harder to move product, to get communication from and to joint ventures or direct investment in China than it is in other countries, which makes some of the other countries more desirable to market in. As far as the specific marketing information, Northeast Asia, we're already involved here. We're heavily involved, and we're looking for more. U.S. presence in these countries is huge. We have direct investment in all of these countries. As far as the nature of the U.S. presence, it's very diversified. The only current issue is that South Korea's FDI dropped at the beginning of this year. However, we have U.S. direct investment into all of these countries. They all lie within the top 7. These 4 are in the top 7 in the region. And that shows just how important these places are to us as far as investment goes. The only other ones are Singapore, India, and there's one more that I can't remember off the top of my head, but they have a whole lot of investment. And really, we have a lot of investment in these 4 countries. For instance, there's a gorgeous 4-story Starbucks in Japan, and there's McDonald's in China. It just goes on and on and on. There's so many examples. So in summary, really, we are super involved in this region, and we have no reason not to continue to grow and be more and more involved in China, Hong Kong, Japan, and South Korea. These are really our best regions, some of our best regions, and definitely some of the most growing regions in the world. My name is Ethan Cole Hedrick. This has been my regional analysis of Northeast Asia, and I thank you so much for your time and for listening. Have a wonderful day.